He gets out of the car. He's got the drugs on him. Well, lo and behold, a local gang also knew that he was delivering the drugs. So when we come to take him down, this gang is running out there. I think they were called the I Refuse Posse. They come running out. They're going to rob him and kill him and take his drugs. So all three of us converge on each other into an unbelievable shootout.
Have you ever heard the phrase becoming the best version of yourself? Yeah, me too. But what does that even mean, and how do we become that person? I'm here to help you navigate through those questions and come up with actionable steps in order for you to live your best life. We've got to discover what we want. We've got to figure out a plan on how to get there, and then we have to go. We can't just sit and wait any longer. Life won't wait on us. So come join me on this constant journey to become the best version of yourself and to find your best you. I'll see you on the other side. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Nick Carrier's Best You podcast. I have a super special interview today. I have one of my high school football coaches, actually, Danny Stevens, or to me, Coach Kopp, and probably to a lot of you out there as well, Coach Kopp. So, Coach, I really appreciate you spending the time with me today.
It's really an honor to be here, Nick. I'm glad you asked me to do this. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, well, definitely. Well, I know we're going to get a lot into his stories and everything like that. Currently, he's a high school football coach too, but his kind of main job, he's a fugitive detective for the Atlanta Police Department and has been kind of a cop and in different roles as a cop throughout his entire career. And for the last, 31 years. 31 years. And so super excited to get into some of that stuff. But the basically way I want to start is give a little context for people kind of leading up to that. And give a little bit of context for me because I don't really know too much about your early childhood and like kind of how you got to being a cop. So we're going to start with when you were 13 years old, you ruptured your appendix and playing a football game. So I kind of want you to tell a little bit about that story and just kind of take it from there.
Yeah, I was 13 years old. I played for a youth organization called the Atlanta Colts and loved it. I was having a time of my life. We were 5-0, doing really good. And then two of the most influential coaches I ever had, football coaches, were Billy Martin and Bill Schmitz. And I love those guys to death. And then all of a sudden I got really sick. And I hit a quarterback from another team called Tucker Lions. And I sacked him. I had a great game. And all of a sudden I just wasn't feeling good. And then I kept getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And so eventually I stopped eating. I couldn't eat. So then I went to the doctor. They pricked my finger, and there wasn't enough blood to show that I had a ruptured appendix. And so what had happened is I kept coming home, and I'm still sick. And then my mom made it was Thanksgiving, so mom made turkey and dressing, and then that's my favorite dinner, and I couldn't eat it. So she goes, something's wrong. So she took me to the hospital and to a doctor's office from a recommendation from one of my football coaches. And I went to the doctor's office. First thing he did is he took blood from my arm. That's the first time that's ever happened. And then they wheeled me away to the OR. My appendix had already been ruptured for 15 days.
Oh, my gosh.
And that's not supposed to happen. They didn't think I was going to live through it. So they get in there and they sedate me, everything. And then they put me asleep. And then when I woke up, everybody that I knew, all my family, my football coaches from the Atlanta Colts were there, and I'm getting ready to go to surgery, and I knew something was wrong. And then the doctor asked everybody to clear the room, and he wanted to talk to me one-on-one. I'm a 13-year-old kid, and he told me about the will to live. In other words, they didn't think I was going to live through it. He told me, he says, what's going to happen is, he goes, your appendix is in like a balloon right here, and it's ruptured. And we scared that when we cut you open, the oxygen from the air is going to pop that balloon, and all that poison is going to go in your body. And we're just hoping that, that you're going to pull through this. And he goes, and I believe in the will to survive. And I believe that if you set your mind to it, a man can do anything. A young man can do anything. And I looked at him. I was scared. I looked at him. I said, how long is the surgery going to be? And he says, about 5 hours. And I put my hand out there, and I shook his hand. I said, I'll see you in 5 hours. And then something happened that changed my life forever. And I'll never forget this. I was a spiritual kid. I grew up in church and everything. And I'm getting ready to I'm getting wheeled out. My parents at the end down there waiting on me to get there before I go through the doors. And my football coach, Bill Schmitz, came up to me and he grabbed me and he says, Cat, they call me Cat Stevens because I had 9 lives, I guess. He goes, Cat, he goes, you're going to be all right. He goes, I promise you, you're going to be all right. And he looked me square in the face and goes, hey, son, I want you to know I love you. And I'm like, I've never had another man in my life other than my father tell me they love me. So as they're wheeling me in, I closed my eyes and I prayed to God right then and there. I said, if you let me live through this, I'll be just like that man right there. I'll go give back and I'll go coach football the rest of my days. And so I go in, I kiss my parents. And of course, it's kind of weird because that happened on a Saturday night. And then when I come to from surgery, of course, they wake you up in the recovery room, and I don't remember that. And then I wake up on Monday, and the first thing I saw when I woke up, I'll never forget it. It was Monday Night Football. The Bears were playing the Tampa Bay Bucks, and I looked up, and I had all these tubes coming out of me. And my dad took off running because I was in a lot of pain. But that set the course for the rest of my life. I went and played college football after that. And I went and finished the year at Murphy Candler, and then I went on to play college football. And then my grandmother became a victim of a crime. And then when she became that victim of a crime, I left college football and joined the Atlanta Police Department. So when that happened, when I was 22 years old. I then kept my promise to God, and I started coaching football. I went right back to Murphy Candler, the Atlanta Colts, and started coaching there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I want to backtrack to the football thing a little bit. So when you started playing football in college, right, and then before you graduated, this happened, the incident with your grandmother. First, go a little bit more into, I guess, what exactly happened to give people a little bit more context. And then had you ever thought about being a cop before that? Or was it just kind of like a random decision?
No, I think it was divine intervention because I was going to be a high school football coach and a history teacher. That's what I was majoring in. I was wanting to be a coach.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, it was December 22nd, 1987. My grandmother was in a bad area of Atlanta. She was poor. My grandfather had died, and she lived in a bad area of town. But all her kids, my aunts and uncles, we always went there on Christmas Eve, and we had kind of like a Christmas dinner, and then we opened up presents, and then we all went home and had Santa Claus open presents that morning. Well, on the 22nd, my grandmother was not very, very wealthy at all. As a matter of fact, what she usually gave us for Christmas was envelopes with like $5 in it or something like that, cash. Well, she was in a restaurant and I had her purse around her neck, and an individual came up to her with a gun and says, "Give me your purse." And it was December 22nd. And then she had she just went and got all the cards and had all the money and everything ready in there. And she said no. And so thank God he didn't shoot her, but he did beat her with the pistol and messed her face up a little bit, took the purse and took off running. So then she went to a hospital near there, which my other grandmother was a nurse. And back in these days in 1988, all we had was we didn't even have phones or nothing like this. We had answering machines. So I had just came home from college, and on that answering machine was a message from my mom and dad where they were at. My grandmother had been assaulted and all that. So all my grandmother could think about was getting back and finishing that dinner. So when I came back, when I went down for Christmas 2 nights later, and I saw her face, I went and joined the Atlanta Police Department. I quit school.
Wow.
And I said, you know what? There's nothing more important in my life than family. And I said, this is never going to happen again. So I joined the Atlanta Police Department. I got on November 18th, 1988.
Wow. So yeah, go a little bit more into that decision, because obviously that's the motivating force, but there's definitely I'm sure you had debate for a little bit, maybe before you actually made the final decision that I'm going to do it. What was the thought process going into it of stopping school, and when did you actually finally commit full time, being all right, this is what I'm going to do?
Well, it took a little bit because what had happened remember that's 1987. So then 88 came, and I'm struggling with myself because football was my love. And all my life, all I ever been told, family first, family first, family first. Your last name is more important than your first and all that. I was raised by, my mom and dad raised me, and that's how they raised me. And I was like, well, my grandmother didn't live in a good side of town, and I wasn't going to let anything happen to her. And she had been burglarized twice since that incident. And then I finally said, it's time for me to go do something. So I went and joined the Atlanta Police Department. And I gave up college football. I always thought maybe I could come back or get my degree and still be a teacher. And that's how then I started coaching Little League football.
Mm-hmm.
And then so that kind of took up for me leaving college football and I could still coach. And then you're not going to believe this. I'll just jump ahead, but I coached at that Little League park for 10 years, and I kept praying to God, Lord, give me a sign when you want me to leave here and go somewhere else, because another local high school had called me and said, hey, we want you to be our coach. We want you to coach the JV. And so I'm praying, nothing. So I kept coaching, and you're not going to believe this. I get a phone call that last year at 2:00 in the morning, and one of my football players was at Scottish Rite Hospital with appendicitis. Tell me that's not. And
my Lord.
I couldn't believe it. So I got in my car. I drove down the Scottish Rite. I held the kid's hand. I told him I loved him when he went in. I was going to be here when he got out. And that was my sign that I finished my commitment. And that's tell me that's not God.
I just got the chills.
And so when that happened, I went and coached 2 years at a school called Dunwoody High School. And then I had a real bad experience there. And I had to literally take 2 football players off a coach they were fighting, and I had to testify against them. So I said, this is not for me. I'm done. And I'll just go back to coaching Little League or just, at this time I'm policing. And then God stepped in. The phone rang, and I picked up the phone. And the man that held my hand and told me he loved me was named Bill Schmitz. He was now a football coach at Marist High School, at Marist School in Atlanta. And he goes, Cat, how you doing? I said, I'm doing good, Coach. He says, how'd you like coaching football this year? I said, I think I'm done. He goes, no. He goes, you need to come over here at Marist. So I went to Marist, and that was my first year at Marist. I coached 9th grade with him and Coach Dan Perez. And as fate would have it, that first year was the 9th grade year was 2000. And we had a running back that was really good, and we had a quarterback, and our quarterback got hurt, and he blew his knee out against Westminster the first game. And me, Coach Schmitz, and Coach Perez got together and said, who should we make the quarterback? And we're like, hey, this Sean McVay kid's pretty good, so let's put him at quarterback. That was probably the best decision we've ever made in our lives.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. That's so cool.
Let me finish with this. That year at the banquet, we went 6-1. The only game we lost was that Westminster game. And it was 20 years, I think right at 20 years, that I held, Coach Mitz held my hand. So when I spoke at the banquet, I said, a football coach can change your life forever. A football coach can come into your life as a young man and really help you and help you in those younger days and put you on the right path. And I told him a story about this guy that held my hand and told me he loved me. I said, but the one thing I never did to that guy is I never told him I loved him back. And so I told Coach Mitz, Coach, stand up. Nobody knew who I was talking about. I said, I love you too, Coach. And I appreciate everything you've done for me. And he changed my life forever. And the day that he retired at Marist, he literally walked up to me and handed me his whistle. When I said, Coach, I got it from here.
Wow. Jeez.
So tell me there ain't a God. My whole life come full circle right there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. I don't even know where to go from there. That was just unreal. So I'll go into this then, because I think a lot of kind of who you are and how you act and how you treat other people is from the different role models, definitely like your coach, but I think your parents too were huge. You talked about how they always treat or taught you that your last name is more important, family is the most important thing. So outside of maybe those couple of things, what do you think is maybe one of the most important lessons that your parents have taught you?
Like my dad said, my dad always told me that my last name is more important than my first, because that last name represents every single one of us. And my dad said, the only thing I'm going to give you in life that's going to be there forever is going to be my last name. And it's not going to have a single tarnish on it. And it's going to be up to you to keep our last name, and to keep it, be proud of it, and don't don't hurt it. And all my life, I never want to let my parents down. I mean, I was that kid that started playing football and baseball at a young age. And even when, and so my parents were there for everything I did. I look in the crowd and there they were. I was very fortunate. I was truly blessed to have two unbelievable parents and that believed in sports, and sports keeps you out of trouble. And I stayed out of trouble. I was a good kid. And so football was our life. And so was, baseball as well. And I watched my dad get up every day, go to work, never complained, never said anything, went and did his 9 hours, come home and just kept grinding. And
I love it. Yeah.
That instilled in me a work ethic.
Yeah, I think one of the big things too that I've already taken away, and I kind of knew this about you, but your philosophy as a football coach is to impact the lives of the people that you coach, right? It's like you love the game of football, but you really love kind of molding young men and being an impact in their lives and try to set them off and on the right foot. Whereas I think a lot of people, when they think of football, if they're not necessarily ever played, they just think of it as the game itself and kind of look at it like that. But you have such a more of a grandiose perspective in terms of the importance of it. And you already said, the importance of sports keeps you out of trouble, and then all that other stuff. So I think that's really cool.
But I've always lived by the motto, a good coach can change a game. A great coach can change a life. And so when I get into that, I'm not into this. I'm not into the game, wins and losses. And fortunately, I've been at an unbelievable, high school where we've made the playoffs 37 straight years. And it's been a great experience for me, but I didn't do it for that. Every single kid, including you, everybody that's ever went through the Mariners football team had my phone number. And that's been over 20 years. And I've always said, hey, I'm here. We're in this thing together, not just while you're on the football team, but for the rest of your life, because that's what I saw a coach do to me. And I've had a lot of phone calls over the years. I've had a coach, I'm in trouble. Coach, can you help me? And you got to be there for them, because some kids, you don't know what's going on at their house or what's going on behind closed doors. And, you see me do it to you. And I love on everybody. And I'm the coach who's going to chew you out, get in your face, and 30 minutes later, I'm going to tell you I love you. And I do. I love every football player I've ever coached. And I mean that from my heart. That's just not a word I play with. And I want to be in their lives forever. And then it's kind of now I'm growing older. I'm looking at what makes me proud. I'm looking at these young men who've grown up and now they're in their 30s and now they're, they're having their own kids and they're married and I'm proud of them and they're being good dads. And, and I'm like, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I love it. Well, let's get into some of the cop stuff. So you started back in 1988, I guess November of 88, you said is when you officially went on. So tell me a little about the early days and what your experience was like in terms of kind of what's your mindset towards it in terms of how you want your career to develop and just what it's like in your early days as a cop.
Well, I literally became a patrolman in a place called Zone 3. It was known as the War Zone. That's where my grandmother lived. So when I got through the academy, you got to pick where you wanted to go if you were in the top 10%. And everybody else chose to go to Buckhead and all the nice areas. I chose to go to Zone 3, which is southeast Atlanta. And everybody thought I was crazy, but that's why I got into it. Mm-hmm. And so I went down there the last 8 years of my grandmother's life. Nothing happened to her. I worked the night shift, and all my buddies. Being a police officer is kind of like it's a family within itself. It's a thin blue line. You're there for everybody, so everybody knows where everybody's family members live. And my grandmother literally had a house that had a driveway that went behind her house, and so when the police officers had to write reports and stuff, they would literally 2:00 in the morning drive behind my grandmother's house and write reports in her backyard, and she could look out her window and see the cops sitting in the backyard. Wow. And then my pride kicked in, and I wanted to be if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. So there's an opportunity for me to get on this elite unit. It was called Red Dog back in the day. And because I had a friend that OD'd in high school on drugs at a later time, and that affected me. So I literally said, I'm going to stop drugs in Atlanta, Georgia. And I really was naive enough to think I could do it. And so I joined the Red Dog unit, and all Red Dog was a tactical narcotics team. It stood for, an acronym, stood for Run Every Drug Dealer Out of Georgia. And we wore black uniforms. We just hunted drug dealers and gang members. And I did that for almost 8 years. And then once I realized I couldn't change it, you're just barely putting a dent in it.
Yeah.
And then I became an undercover narcotics detective for a little bit, and that was okay. And then I became a homicide detective, and that changed my life forever. I was a homicide detective for 13 years. And the hardest part of being a homicide detective is when you have that death. Let's say it's a young lady. This is an actual case. I mean, we wore black trench coats. We get called out in the morning. I worked the night shift. So I'm sitting there and we get called. I have a young lady that was murdered. Now I have to go tell the family. So I can remember I've done numerous of these things, but this was one that really stuck with me. I knocked on the door and they look out. I have my badge pinned up here on my collar and I got my hat on. She looks outside and I can see her turn the light on and look out. She goes, "I think it's the police." She comes downstairs and I walk in. I said, "Ma'am, are you alone? Is your husband here?" And he's coming down. And then I deliver the worst news they're ever going to get in their lives. And I tell them, you can't tell them it's an accident. You have to tell them your daughter's been murdered. And so she jumps up, runs over, calls the phone because the daughter was supposed to be spending the night with somebody else. She calls that person, and that person goes, "No, she said they were spending the night with you," and all that. And then all of a sudden she collapsed on the floor. And I picked her up, put her on the sofa. The dad, he just can't, he's in shock. He can't believe it. And and that's the start of a case. And then now you got to bring closure to that family. And then you got to, so when I got really good at it because I never want to get beaten. I want to bring those people closure. And again, with my walk with Christ, I felt, okay, this is my calling. And so I would literally become closer to that family than I should. And then I would go in and I would solve it, come in, but you never are the bearer of good news. Even when you solve it, you can't bring the kid back. And but you stay in those families' lives forever, and it's in your heart and it's in your mind, and you'll never forget them because you're the one that gave them that news. Yeah. That's hard.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds, I can't even fathom what that experience is like. What did you maybe learn about yourself, or what maybe quality did you develop since you had to do that tough of a thing that's just nobody has to do unless they're in your shoes?
I seen other cops, other detectives. To them, it was, it's just another dead guy or whatever. And the kid might have been a drug dealer or something like that. And then, then you kind of get desensitized. I never did that because I know what a mom and a dad's love for a child is. And when I testified in court, they always ask me, Detective Stevens, do you work for the Atlanta Police Department? And I always tell them no. I work for that family sitting in the back of that courtroom right there. That's who I work for. And I don't work for the mayor. I don't work for the city of Atlanta. I work for them. I'm going to bring them closure. And I'm here today to talk about the death of their child. And if you take it personal, and if you take it within your heart to bring closure, and you try to get a bad guy off the street, I don't care who he killed or what he killed. Somebody loves that kid and that victim. And that's how you have to look at it. But I've seen other people who would be like, he's just, he's been a drug dealer for years. But what I always did to help motivate me was I'd go get I've had plenty of pictures of the guy dead or the girl or whoever. I got plenty of pictures, video. I went and found a picture. I went and talked to the mom, and I would say, "Hey, can you give me a picture of your daughter or your son playing football or cheerleading or something? Because I want to see them alive." So that day when I'm not having a good day and I'm tired and I flip open that file and I see that picture, that's who you're working for. And then that motivates you. And that's how I trained everybody and most people in Atlanta homicide unit that way. And in my almost 13 years, I had 122 homicides and I solved 117 of them. And I was very proud of that. And there was 5 I didn't solve. And I know people are going to say, well, does that still drive you crazy? Yeah. I know 3 of them who did it, and I can't prove it. And the other 2, I don't have any clue on whatsoever. But it affected me so much. I got so involved in it that I was so wanting to bring closure and help people that sometimes you forget about things at home. And then I had a little awakening, and then my daughter almost died, and I said, "That's it. I need to stop doing this." Because homicide is not an 8-hour day job. It's a 24-hour day job. You're constantly thinking about what you can do, what you didn't do, and what else you got to do, and what you forgot to add, and you're thinking of different ways to solve a puzzle.
Mm-hmm. So I think that you being so kind of like emotionally invested and like acting like you're working for the family was probably one of the reasons that you always stayed so motivated and you were so successful getting 117 to the 122. But maybe like outside of that, more like specifically like what allowed you to be so good? Like what were maybe some other things that you were just really good at in terms of like your strategies that made you so successful at it?
I was a very good interviewer. I went to all these schools, these interview schools. I was a neurolinguistics expert. In other words, I can talk to you and I know when you're lying to me by certain ways. You look, in direction, your muscle memory recall and what brain dominant you are and all that. So I went to several schools on that. Some people call it a Reed method. I did the Reed method later, but I went to an advanced school in the beginning when it first came out. And so I was really good at interviews and I was really good at talking to people. And you got to remember, harder the shell, when somebody gets in there, they look hard, softer the heart. The people who are the hardest to break in an interview are the kids on the streets. You get a doctor in there, he thinks he's smarter than you. It's all about trying to figure this out and trying to break them and get them to confess to what they did. And I was very good at that, to the point where other people would call me in to interview their suspects. And I did that for a long time. And that was something that I brought. And plus my desire from sports to not be beaten. I didn't like to be beaten in anything.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I want to bring up one thing that you said. You said your daughter almost died?
Yeah, it was as my wife would tell you, it was a summer from hell. My daughter, it was June 18th. We're down in Florida, and I'm the most protective father you've ever seen in your life. I have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and my daughter is just, it's a father's love for his daughter. I mean, it's unbelievable. And we're there, and I'm cooking. The next day is Father's Day, so we're all down there cooking at a condo in Florida. And my mother-in-law takes my daughter. We've been trying to teach her to swim all week, and she gets there, and my mother-in-law takes her to the pool along with 2 other older women. And then my mother-in-law decides she's going to go and ask other people if they want to come to this cookout. I'm back at the condo cooking. And the 2 women that were my daughter looked at my daughter and says, "Can you swim?" And my daughter's been trying to learn to swim all week. And she's like 4. And she goes, "Yeah, I can swim." So my daughter jumps in the pool and she goes to the bottom of the pool, and she is at the bottom of the pool. So all of a sudden this guy comes running up to me, goes, "Danny," he goes, "Sydney's in trouble." And I said, "What?" He goes, "Sydney's drowning." He says, "Sydney has drowned." And the first thing I did is I prayed. And my worst fear, my worst nightmare had just hit me. And I took off running, and then I could see them getting her out of the pool. She was bloated and she had started to turn color. And my wife's uncle started CPR on her. So I jumped the fence. Then he had started it, and I started finishing it. And then I picked her up, put her on my shoulder, started jumping up and down to get her to start puking the water. And I'm sitting here and I'm praying the entire time. I'm going, "Oh God, please no. Oh God, no." And it was one of those hot Junes. So I didn't want to lay her on the concrete because it was hot. So I ran into to my condo, threw on the floor, and I started CPR on her. And then I looked at my wife. People already dialed 911. I looked at my wife and my son, my oldest son. I said, "Go find the ambulance. They're not going to know where we're at. Get them here," because she wasn't breathing. She was dead. And I'm praying and I'm doing CPR, and then all of a sudden she throws up the water, and I turn her to her side and she keeps throwing up. And then she looks at me and she's crying. When you're crying, that means you're breathing. And the greatest word I ever heard in my life came out of her mouth. She looked at me and she said, "Dad." And I was like, "Oh God, thank you, Jesus." And then I jump up, we put her in the ambulance, and then we get to the hospital. And I always remember this. There's a thing called, I think it's called dry drowning. But anyway, if you don't know about it, if your kid still needs to go to the hospital. We go and she gets a CAT scan, and she still had fluids in her lungs. And then what they did is they kept her overnight, because a lot of times people almost drown. They don't know there's fluids on their lungs. And then that night when they go to bed, they die. And so if anybody out there listening, if your child almost drowns, take them to the hospital and let them do an MRI on her. A CAT scan on her. So the next day was the greatest Father's Day of my life. It's the greatest gift I ever had. And then all of a sudden you think it can't get no worse. Right then and there, it changed my life forever. My family became first, which my family was always first, but I thought how hard I worked and I needed to make everybody proud of me and all that. So I then left the homicide unit right after that, because I'm like, I got to focus just on my family. So you think all of a sudden things can't get worse. I get home, I'm thankful and praying and everything is great. And then my neighbor, who lived 2 houses over from me, steps outside with a gun and starts shooting at people. Just started shooting at everybody. And I lived in a cul-de-sac, and I known this neighbor for a couple of years, and nice guy, and he had fallen off the wagon. He was an alcoholic and a drug user. He's 59 years old. His name was Greg. I love the guy. He steps outside and he starts shooting at everybody. Everybody starts running in my house because everybody knows I'm the cop. And so I'll dial 911. And to make a long story short, I have to go outside and confront him, and he shoots at me, and I end up shooting him. And then he goes back into his garage with a gun, and then another police department finally shows up to help me out. And then he comes out with a bottle of Jack Daniels in his hand. He drinks it and puts it behind his back, and I know what he's doing. And I'm telling him, don't do it. They're going to kill you. I had shot him in the groin area. I didn't want to kill him. But anyway, so he comes out and takes that bottle and points it at me real fast, and the guy with the sniper rifle shoots and kills him. So that was the worst summer of my life. So right then and there, I said, okay, I'm no longer going to be in homicide, and I need to move. So we moved to Cumming, Georgia, and I left. The FBI has this unit that's called the Violent Crimes Unit. It's a task force where you hunt murderers, rapists, child molesters, and bank robbers. And they came to me, and I said, you know what? I'm your guy. So, and that's how my last 11 years finished there. I was on the Violent Crimes Unit with the FBI. So it's kind of weird how God refocuses everything, and what you think is important all of a sudden is not as important. And for my daughter's 13 years old. So that's all my life's been about, is my family.
Yeah.
So it kind of refocuses everything.
Yeah. It's really cool and kind of crazy at the same time to me how you've kind of just like let the experiences that you've had in your life kind of like take you to where you are. Like in the sense of like when your grandmother got assaulted or whatever, you decided that you were going to be a cop and you were going to like go down into that area. And then like this circumstance switched you into or like your friend who got into drugs, you're like, okay, I'm going to fight those kinds of, or like try to eliminate the drugs and be in Red Dog. And then this thing, you're like, okay, now I'm going to go to the violent crimes thing. So you just kind of like very much listened to like God, if you will, calling you to these different areas. So I think that's just like super cool and really unique. But you've done a lot of drug raids. You've gone into high stress pressure situations when you were in the FBI, I'm sure, all the time. What do you think is one of the keys for you, or had been one of the keys for you, going into like a high pressure, high stress situation to kind of go in with the right mindset and like stay relatively calm, or just like maybe focused is the better word to describe it?
When you do an entry, you go in, you either blow the door, you hit it with a hammer, you go on the shield. I've probably done over 10,000 entries in my career. With my almost 8 years in Red Dog, and these are the last 11 with the FBI, which was also the fugitive unit with Atlanta. You're going to laugh. One of the football players asked me the other day, Coach, you ever get scared? After 10,000 raids, I said, yeah. And you're always scared, and you're always a little bit worried because you don't know what's on the other side of that room, on the other side of that door, and you're going after some of the baddest of the bad. And the thing that I've always fell back on are two things: my faith and my training. And first of all, if you're right with God and something goes wrong, I'll see you on the other side. I'll be waiting on you. And you have to make sure your faith is right. And I've always put a lot of emphasis on my walk with Christ, and it's always made me at ease. And that's what I tell my kids. And I'll tell you a story about that in a minute. But then you got to train. You got to sweat now so you don't bleed later. And I'm really big on training. And we go in, I want to make sure everybody knows what they're doing. And I've always, you've heard my pregame speeches. I'm fired up, and I do that with my team. Hey, we're going to do this. Because I could see them when we're sitting down talking and we're getting briefed, and they go, hey, this guy's going to put on Facebook. He's put on social media. He's not going to be taken alive and blah, blah, blah. And he's going to do this. And he's going to kill all the cops he can. I could see the fear hit him. And so as somebody who's been around longer, then I look at them and I say, hey, let me tell you right now. I said, we'll do what we have to do. I promise you, everybody's going home. By God, just follow me. We'll get this done. I promise. There ain't nothing going to happen to you. And then that's why I've always was one of the first two guys through the door, because I've done so many of them and I know what I'm looking for. And that way nobody behind me gets hurt, hopefully. And knock on wood, the only person's ever been hurt was me. And then we've had some incidents. I've been in my 31 years, I think it's been 17 shootouts. And the hardest thing to ever do is to take a life. And everybody talks about, the war movies and all that stuff. You have to remember, when you take a life, somebody loved that individual, and you have to live with that. Killing somebody is easy. Living with it is what hard. And you justify in your head, what if you let him do this? Or maybe he would have dropped that gun he's pointing at you. Or, well, what if he'd have pulled the trigger? So, and that's where I always try to be there for other officers when they shoot somebody, because I know what you're going through. See, that's where officers have a hard time, because a lot of times they turn to drinking and alcohol and hanging around buddies and all that stuff, because that's how they face reality. That's how they want to go through it and stop the pain. And that's not the way to do it. You just really need to reach out to other people and other veterans. And if you're a real veteran, you'll reach out to them and say, hey, I'm here for you. Let's talk about it. I've been there. I know what you're going through. I know what you're thinking. And then, because that's the hardest thing to do, is shoot somebody. And especially if you take a life, and you're like, then you start, it's just really hard on you.
Yeah. Is there any, you said you had a story. Is there any particular story or any highest, how do I phrase this? Is there any been a craziest experience or scariest experience that comes to the top of your head? I know, like you said, you had 17 shootouts and you've had some probably crazy kind of experiences. Is there anything that jumps out to your mind that maybe affected you the most moving forward?
Yeah, I was in one of the biggest shootouts in Atlanta police history. It's called the Hollywood Shootout. It was up on Holly Ridge. It was a housing project up there. I was in Red Dog at the time. And this big drug dealer, they call him the Mule, he's bringing all these drugs in. And I had received information that this was happening. And so me and my team, we went up there. It's called creeping. We snuck through the woods, and we're sitting there waiting on him. So when he comes up, he pulls up, everything is going perfect. And he gets out of the car. He's got the drugs on him. Well, lo and behold, a local gang also knew that he was delivering the drugs. So when we come to take him down, this gang is running out there. I think they were called the I Refuse Posse. They come running out. They're going to rob him and kill him and take his drugs. So all three of us converge on each other into an unbelievable shootout. I ended up shooting two people in that situation. There was a moment where we're all shooting at each other. They take off running to a car, and there's four of them shooting at us, and there's only three. I have three guys on my team with me, and then we have some more down the street that we're going to call in to help in case he gets in a car. So they couldn't. By the time they got there, it's already over with. So they get in this car, and this guy, he's got a fully automatic AK-47, and he is lighting me up. And I'm behind a 1967 Chevrolet Impala, and all of a sudden I'm hiding. The bullets that he is shooting is going all the way through the car. So I'm behind the car, and I look, and I can see the metal going out. And I went, oh, God, these bullets are going through the car. So now I got to get underneath the car near the axle, and all I had was a shotgun. So he is shooting at me. And then all of a sudden I smelled gas. And then I was like, if I'm going to die, I'm dying fighting. So at that time, I then came up. As I came up, I ended up shooting him. I shot him and took most of his hand off. So he drops the gun. But this is how much of a bad person this guy was. He reached down with his other hand, picked that gun up, holds his hand like this, and continued to shoot at me. But the only thing that would save me was the gun was fully automatic. He didn't know how to shoot, and it kept raising. And then as he's shooting, he hit the ground, caught the car on fire, and the car caught on fire beside me and just went up in flames. And so I started burning me. So I went and dove behind another car and trying to put everything out, and I'm reloading my gun. Now they get in this car, and as they're coming in the car I'm behind, I don't know if you remember this car, it's called a Yugo. And I think I was probably safer behind a cardboard box in this car. So here they come. They're about to drive by me. And as they're driving by me now, as they get beside me, this guy's shooting out the window. There's three of them shooting out the window. But as soon as they get beside me, I won't have any cover. So I then shot into the car, and I hit the driver, took his lips off, and shot him in the face. And then he went down the street, wrecked the car. They got into another car and they got away, but we ended up catching a couple of them. And the driver, it was kind of weird. When we get to the car, I knew he was hit because his lips, when I hit him in the face, his lips were laying on the steering wheel. And to this day, we've never found him.
Oh,
so if you ever see a lipless guy somewhere, I'm looking for him. That was one of those situations that when they took the car, that first car that was on fire, when everybody gets there, there were so many rounds shot in that. And I'll tell you what's kind of ironic. At the same time that shootout was going on, there was a guy named Eric Rudolph that had just taken a bomb and put it at a gay bar called the Other Side Bar, and it went off at the same time my shootout happened. So half the city got divided. So Eric Rudolph had just bombed one of our bars, our gay bars called the Other Side, and then so half the city's going there and half the city's coming to me. And that's how I can always remember the date of that, because it's the same time he started doing his bombing. And but the thing it was you said it kind of changed my life is when they took the car, the first car I was behind, you could see all the bullet rounds that were literally going around my body. My body was right here by the tire, and there was rounds that went here, rounds that went there, and it's just kind of like a silhouette around me. And then, of course, and then I get underneath the car, and it's like, if it's your time, it's your time. If it ain't, it ain't. And and of course, like I said, I don't want to keep harping about my walk with Christ, but it's just it soothes you, and that's what keeps like police officers' families okay, because we're like, hey, we have to believe in something, and then it makes my wife sleep at night. She says, hey, if it's your time to go, it's your time to go, and that was proof to her that somebody's looking after you, you know.
Oh my Lord. I could hear these stories all day long. It's just crazy.
Everybody says I need to write a book, but I don't know.
You're so good at doing the storytelling part of it too. Like I feel like I could be there and like picture it myself. You definitely have to find a way to like put the story somewhere, whether like you just record yourself saying them or write them down. I don't know. But it's just awesome stuff. God, I like honestly just want to stay on the stories all day long, but I want to get a little bit into you mentioned Sean McVay, how you coached him in ninth grade, and then they won the Mariners won the state championship with him back in 2003, and now everybody knows who he is. Obviously, the coach of the Los Angeles Rams. But this past February, they went to the Super Bowl. So I'm gonna actually just let you take it from there and tell your experience with the Super Bowl.
Oh, it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. I mean, I got to work the Olympics in '96 and all that stuff. I'm sitting there, and the Rams had reached out to my chief, and I knew Sean was coming to Atlanta, and they asked for me to personally be assigned to guard the team in Sean McVay, the Los Angeles Rams. So it was kind of cool. It was so the letter came in. My chief says, "Hey, the Rams come in on this Sunday. You're gonna be assigned to them. You're at the hotel. When they come in, introduce yourself to them." I'm like, "Yeah, I know the coach, you know." And so the Rams come in and they get off the bus, and then here comes Wade Phillips, Coach Phillips, and the rest of the staff, and Sean. And Sean looks right at me, comes up and calls me Coach Cop. "Hey, Coach, love you." And that's the thing that we have. You know me, I tell everybody I love them. And so he goes, "Love you, Coach." He goes, "I love you." And he goes, "I need a favor from you." And I said, "Sure." He goes, "I want you to dress my team." And I said, "You want me to talk to the team?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Pretty much tell them what they can and can't do, where they can and can't go, and blah, 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 and where they need to stay away from, and all this and that." And so 40 minutes into them getting to the hotel, I'm standing in front of the Los Angeles Rams like I used to stand in front of you and all the guys, all the kids at Marist, and go, hey, don't do this. Don't go here. Stay away from this place. If you need this, reach out to this number or whatever. And then next thing I know, Coach McVay comes up to me and says, hey, you don't mind if I give him your cell phone number? Like I've given my cell phone number over 20 years out to everybody. And I said, yeah, why not? Give him my cell phone number. So his assistant's name is Billy, and Billy puts my cell phone number and sends it to every single person on the Rams team. And all of a sudden, everybody now has my cell phone number. And so for the next 8 days, I literally went to breakfast, lunch, and dinner with them. I was going to commute back and forth from my house, and then the Rams came up to me and says, nope, you got a room here with us, and you're going to stay in a hotel with us, and you're with us 24/7. So I got to go to their practices, and I would probably say I was able to see things that nobody else was able. I was able to walk into the defensive office, and I'm watching Coach Phillips prepare for the New England Patriots. I'm watching their game plan, and I'm watching them. I'm privy to a lot of information that's going on, and they trusted me wholeheartedly. Of course, they come up to me, hey, tell me stories about Coach McVay and all that stuff, and there's really no stories to tell. He was the perfect kid. He didn't never done anything wrong, was always on time, was a great leader, one of the greatest leaders we ever had at Marist. And there was nothing I could really say. I couldn't tell him anything, any gossip or anything. It was kind of funny. And I said, y'all got the greatest guy. I mean, everybody's looking for the next Sean McVay, and you ain't going to find him because there ain't but one of him. But a thing that I try to do every morning was I try to get up early and beat him in the office. One day I got up at 5, he was already there. One day I got up at 4, and he was already there. And then one night at 2:30 in the morning, I couldn't sleep. So I got up and came down. I was like, I'm going to beat him today. And he was already in his office. And so he came out. I tried to keep my distance from him. I didn't want to be a distraction to him. So it ain't like me and him sat there and talked 24/7.
Right,
He's preparing for the Super Bowl. And so he walks out and he looks at me and he says, well, Coach, you've been here 4 or 5 days. What do you think? And I said, son, you have surrounded yourself with some great people. Your coaches are phenomenal. The administrative staff that you have here and your players are phenomenal. I said, you have really surrounded yourself with some great people. He goes, I know, Coach. He goes, and that's why you're here. Now, I almost broke down. I was fighting back tears. That's how he is. I'm like, well, man, I appreciate that. And then so when the game started, I was on the sidelines, and that's just how many people can say they're on the sidelines of a Super Bowl,
Yeah.
And then he before the game started, the team was getting ready to go down, and he came to me and asked me a personal favor. And I said, well, hey, whatever you need. He goes, can you make sure that my family and my girlfriend, and I remember his grandfather was a general manager for the San Francisco 49ers and was a coach of the New York Giants and all that, John McVay. So he goes, please just get on the bus with him and make sure they make it to the stadium and that they get in. I said, I got your family. Don't you worry about it. I know what family, because family means everything to me. So I get them in there. We get them on the sidelines before the game. Then I take them up and put them in the suites, and then I come down. And then during halftime, I didn't want to be down there with all that. And then so I went back upstairs and sat up there with them, with the family, and got to listen to stories from Sean's grandfather, John McVay, and all that stuff. It was an unbelievable. Of course, it didn't turn out the way we wanted it to turn out. I was really rooting for him to win, but it's also been an honor just to be associated with him and Marist and all that. And it was a great experience. And so now the Rams will be back in town on the 20th. And so they just reached out to me yesterday, and so we're now going back and forth because they play the Falcons in town. So I ain't quite sure what I'm doing with them then. So we'll see.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's so cool.
But it was unbelievable. I'm sitting here going, oh my God, what a way to finish my career. I'm sitting right here with a kid that I've coached since he was 13 years old. And here he is, 32, 33, coaching a Super Bowl. And I'm looking right at him. Well, a lot of people didn't know who I was. Now, the players did, and the players called me Coach Cop. And so during all his interviews, we'd have to go all these interviews everywhere. And then one day we're at the one of those arenas downtown, the new State Farm Arena, and they're doing interviews in there. And all of a sudden, so I'm standing right beside Sean. He's all right here. They're asking him about his photographic memory, about a play from Marist, and So I look, of course, I'm not going to let him fail. I look down and see the play, and I'm going, yeah, he'll remember that one, because I mean, I was there as well. And then all of a sudden, nobody knows who I am. And then this reporter walks up to me, and he says, I know who you are, Coach Scott. I mean, it was Fred Khalil.
Oh, my God.
Fred. Fred's son went to Marist. I coached his son at Marist.
He's in my grade. He was in my grade.
That's right. So I looked at him and I said, all right, Fred. I said, this ain't about me, buddy. This is about, I said, I don't want anybody to know who I am. He goes, all right, your secret's good with me. And I was like, so I kind of stayed behind the scenes and everything, which I thought it was great. And I got to watch the whole interviews and all the big media bliss and everybody coming in, everybody's wanting to, this and that. And I'm like, man, it's really just a distraction. You better have your football already down pat, because you're not going to really get a lot accomplished that week, because you're being pulled in several different directions. And I'm thinking, wow, man, it's more of a Hollywood production than a football game, because of how much time they want you. And of course they still got to have time.
That's why he's got to show up there at 2:30, right?
That's right. That's right. So we got up there and they practiced in Flowery Branch. So we got to take a bus ride up there with them every day. And that was pretty cool. I got pretty tight to a lot of the players. They were really, really good. And I'm still friends with some of them today. I mean, they still text me back and forth and stuff like that. And they're good guys, man.
Awesome. Well, I want to ask a few more questions. One, I want to get into, you've been a football coach now at Marist, or you've been a football coach for longer, but at Marist for a little 20 years or so, over 20 years. What do you think, what does it take to rally a group of young people like that and make them, you're so good at being a leader and getting everybody fired up and getting them motivated and just kind of getting them inspired to play football, but then just being better people too. What is one of the things that maybe you have, a skill that allows you to rally young people so well?
I don't know if it's a gift or a curse, because you really have to reach inside to a young man. And this is what I tell them: inside of every individual is a beast or a demon, and you got to let them out. You got to feed them every now and then. And this is like a pregame speech. I said, hey, football is a violent sport. It is. If you walk out there and you ain't ready to hit somebody, you're going to get hit. So you better have your mind right. You better have your heart in the right place. If you're going to come out here and you're going to be passive, you're going to get hurt. And so you know how my pregame speeches are. I get out there and I tell you, hey, right now when that whistle blows, you release hell. You get out there, you bring something that's never been brought before to this game, and you've got to become violent. You got to be violent really fast. And I said, and you have to be able to have the right mindset to do that. And I said, hey, you know what? And when it's all said and done on Sunday, go get your rosary beads and we'll pray for forgiveness. But right now you're in a violent sport. But what football brings to everybody is I relate it to life. There's times in life you're gonna get knocked down. And I tell the kids, the best friends you're ever gonna have in your entire life is in this room right now in high school. Because when you get to college and play college football, the guy behind you wants you to get hurt, because that way he gets playing time. It's not like a brotherhood as it is here. And I told them, I said, these are your best friends you've ever gonna have in your entire life. When you get married, these are gonna be the guys in your wedding. When you have your first child, these are gonna be the guys coming to the hospital. And unfortunately, when you have a tragedy in your family and your mom and pop die, these are going to be the guys that's going to carry the casket. I said, these are guys that are going to be in your life for the rest of your lives. So quit worrying about moving on and going somewhere else and live in the now and enjoy this, because these are guys that will be beside you for the rest of your lives. They'll have you back until the day you die. Because when you come back and you have these reunions, that's all you're going to talk about. I said, so let's go ahead and go out there and let's play this football game. And let's make sure when we have that reunion, we talked about how we beat the hell out of St. Pius and how we done this and we done it, which is our rival. And that way it's going to be a good reunion. Yeah. And you just gotta motivate men. I mean, and the thing is they want to be motivated. They want to get fired up, because if you walk out there and you're even keel, another team comes, anybody can beat you on any given day, period. And if you're not ready to start in a hurry and bring that violence quick, then you're going to be in trouble.
Gotcha. Do you have your pregame speech for tonight prepared? Or
I do not. I'm sitting here thinking, I got something I got to work on. I usually, what I do is I'll try to find something, and then when I'm out there, we're warming up, and then I'll come up with something. Or sometimes somebody will say something or trigger something, and I'll jump on that. Or I usually last minute. I never even think about it.
Yeah.
So
cool. I like it.
I've had some pretty good ones, and I'm surprised I haven't gotten a lot of trouble in them yet. But, again, that's why there is no priest or anybody in there when I give pregame speeches. So
Yeah.
the kids like it. And then,
yeah, no doubt. That's like, I feel like, I mean, I have like so many different memories and everything like that, but that's probably the one thing that I feel like I talk about the most, and that like a lot of people talk about the most is Coach Kopp's pregame speeches. Well, I want to get down to the last couple questions. So these last two I always ask everybody, and we've gotten to a lot of like awesome stories, but so this is going to be a little bit, I guess, different tone to the interview. But this one is, I always start off with the age question. So how old are you currently? You said 53?
I'm 53, yep.
Okay, cool.
I turned 53 this June.
Yeah, so in 10 years down the road, you're going to be 63. What does 63-year-old Danny Stevens or Coach Kopp look like? What have you done up to that point, and what are you currently doing?
Right now, I think 63 is going to be great, because in 63 I'll probably have grandkids by then, and then I'll be able to pour all my love and everything that I have into them. I'm hoping I'm still in shape. If I can keep in touch with you, I will be. At 63, I'll be fully retired. I retired from the Atlanta Police Department last year, and I'm back under a contract right now with them. And I'm currently about to be the number 2 in command of another police department here. They're fixing to bring me in at the end of the month. And so I'll do that for 5 years, and then I'll call it quits after that. I know I'll be happy. I don't know where I'm going to be. I mean, like I told you earlier, my son plays football in South Dakota. Man, I love it up there, but it does get cold.
Yeah.
And especially in the Spearfish area. So I don't know. I might still be here. I hope not. I want to be traveling. I want to see the world and broaden my horizons and go. Truly, what I want to do the rest of my life is hunt, fish, be with my kids, and drink coffee. That's it.
That's awesome. Sounds like a pretty good rest of your life plan. Well, before I ask the last question, Coach, I want to acknowledge you for, so many things. First, for being that mentor for everyone, for every single person who's ever played for you to reach your hand out to them, for you to put your number out to every single person, because you always made it known to us as players that if anything ever went wrong, let me know. I'll help you out however I can. And for just being so much more than a football coach, being that mentor. I mean, like, I could have done this podcast with anybody, but I did it with you, and you're not the head coach, weren't my position coach or anything like that, but that shows the impact that you've had on me, and I know my brother as well, and I know all the other teammates that I had and everything like that. So I just want to start off by, I guess, thanking and acknowledging you for all you've done in my life, and I know all the other people's lives that you've been in.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm the one that's truly blessed because I got to coach people like you and your brother. And I was the one that, I mean, it was kind of like, if you remember what we were talking about, I was a cop and I'm doing these Red Dog and, homicide and all that. So to counterbalance that, I got to be with fine young men such as yourself and the Marist football players, and it kind of evened everything out in my life. It was the yin to my yang, and so when you see a lot of death and destruction of the world and bad people, and then I get to come over here and be with you kids and then hopefully try to be a small influence in your life and let you, teach you what I know and what I've learned over the years and pass a little bit on to you guys and help you in your ways and your journey in life. And I'm the one that's truly blessed, man. I mean, my whole journey from 13 years old to Coach Schmidt's calling me, and I'm still at Marist to this day. And it's, God, what a ride it's been. It's been unbelievable. And everybody always asks me, hey, how would you describe your life? And I'm blessed. I'm just lucky to be sitting right here in front of you talking to one of my former football players. And I'm proud of what you've done and where you've gone. And I hope everything works out for you in Nashville. It's a great area. And I keep up with you. I follow you on Instagram and all that stuff, which I do everybody. And all these guys forget about it, I kind of like keeping a secret eye on everybody because they forget they friend requested me or they accepted mine. And but the thing about it is here we are all these years later, and we're still in everybody's life. I'm still in your life. You're still in mine. I mean, a year or two ago, you was over here helping us coach a little bit. And that's what it's about. It's about relationships, and it's about being there for one another and helping each other when they need each other and they need help, because life's rough. and it takes a village, man. So.
Yeah. Well, the last question that I always ask everybody, I believe that becoming the best version of yourself is always a constant journey. I think that we're always chasing down that best version. And I also think it's a unique journey. I think the way that I'm going to become the best version of myself is going to be different from the way that you become the best version of yourself. So the way I like to end things out is, for you personally, is if there are 3 things that you could currently do or currently work on to get closer to the best version of yourself, what are those 3 things that you could currently do or currently work on?
I like I told you, when my life changed with my daughter, all that, those are things I had to work on was my family. And so I'm trying to be a better father, a better husband, and a better friend. If I could be those 3 things in my life, when I die, if they look at me and they said he was a good father, a good husband, a good friend, man, I accomplished everything. And so I'm working on those 3 things right there. And don't never think that you're the best at anything, because you always got ways to improve. And that's including my family life. But there's nothing more important to my wife, my children, my faith, and my friends. And I'm constantly always trying to be a better person and trying to be better for them and help others. I want to help others. And that's why I've got into policing. That's why I got into coaching, is to be there for everybody. And hopefully, if people who are watching this will go out there and just help somebody, be a role model in somebody's life, or pick somebody up when they fall down, because life's hard, man. It's hard. It's not easy. And it's harder on some and other people than others, and some people than others. And just be there for somebody. And everybody's always caught up in stupid stuff like politics or this and that. Hey, man, just get up. And as long as you got breath in your lungs, you can change. There's every day is a new day. Every day is a new day to be better. And then every day is a new day to help somebody, and just be there for everybody and help people, and it'll come back tenfold to you. So I don't know if I'd answer your question or not.
No, it does. It does, definitely. Well, I appreciate it, Coach. That's all I got.
Well, brother, I appreciate you. I'm proud of you. And again, if you ever need me, you got my phone number.
I appreciate it.
All right.